Well, hello again. Welcome to Everything and Nothing
And nothing.
and Nothing.
Yep.
Um,
Back for another day. It's been a
yeah.
couple weeks. Life's
Yep.
been busy. We've been to and fro, hither and thither.
Mm-hmm.
But ready to sit down and
Yeah.
well, have a discussion with you once again.
Yeah, let's talk.
Yeah.
I love to do it.
Um, so on the agenda today, we got a couple topics.
Mm-hmm.
What did you want to bring?
So I'm going to talk a little bit about energy and the paranormal is what's on my list today because we're going into the Chinese New Year. And as a feng shui consultant and energy space clearing, it always brings up a lot for me. This is like my busiest time of the year. So I'm going to talk about that. So I'll just jump in.
What's so special about the Chinese New Year?
Well, the Chinese New Year, I mean, for most Americans, we follow the Gregorian. I think that's it, right?
I believe so. Yeah.
Calendar, which, is like more Christian based. And, this is the first. And with the Chinese New Year, it follows more of the lunar cycle. And it has to do with, the zodiac animals. There's 12 for each month. And it can get actually quite in depth in, there's different elements that go along with each animal, like for a couple of years. So it'll go like, if there's fire element and wood element and water element and metal element. But I'm not really going to go deeply into that. If you are interested in the Chinese New Year, I mean, there's just so many people out there with free information. I would really advise you just, type in your Google.
Do your own research.
Yeah, do your own research. It's
Well,
very interesting.
One question, when is the Chinese New Year?
The Chinese New Year's Eve is happening.
Is it based on a new moon? Or is it a set month, set day?
It changes. It
Okay,
changes.
okay.
It's coming on this year. I think it's January, Tuesday the 28th is the eve.
Okay, so 29th, New Year.
And 29th is the New Year. And we're moving into what's the wood snake. And the
wooden
wood
snake?
snake is all about, so the snake is representative of transformation and wisdom and growth in most areas of your life, interpersonal for sure. And then the wood element just really strengthens that energy of the snake. So if you think of wood, wood is grounded, it's rooted, it can have a lot of fast growth. So it's a very supportive element. So it's really a good year to slough off old parts of yourself. Slough off patterns, slough off relationships. We've talked about this. There's been a lot of changes in my relationships and certain people falling off, and transformation in your systems and organization. Maybe there needs to be some upgrades. So just you could apply that concept to really any area of your life. But with that, I just wanted to ask the question, because you've heard me talk about this, like I walk between the worlds.
Yeah,
What
between
do
the
you
veil.
think? What do you think that means, like for you?
Before we say goodbye, let me just say, knock on wood to a slippery, slithering snake.
Yes.
'Cause
We're
it's
not
coming.
saying goodbye. Yes.
Yep.
Oh, we're saying goodbye to the dragon. Yeah, the dragon was last year. Bye-bye.
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 So what does,
Yeah,
phrase it one more time for me so I can tackle it.
okay. I don't even know if I remember the
Fair
question
enough.
because I'm having wine tonight.
Talking about walking between the two sides.
Yeah, what does it mean to you? Like what if you think about, because I want to make that a little bit more clear for all of you out there, because I've said it a few times. Like,
Well, really,
I walk between the two worlds.
and really the world you're talking about can be, are seen in a lot of different ways throughout literary and religion. You got life and death. You got, behind the veil. You got the physical reality, the spiritual reality.
Yeah.
There's a lot of ways to interpret that, I feel. I think I'd probably be most comfortable acknowledging it as sort of a concrete reality and then all of the paranormal.
Yeah. Or yeah. And what's paranormal to you? I mean, because most
Yeah.
people say paranormal is like ghosts and
Aliens and Bigfoot and basically
Bigfoot.
conspiracy theories and
Yeah.
paranormal kind of go hand in hand. Your chupacabras.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, I mean, one of the first questions you really have to ask is, what is reality and what is paranormal? How much of it resides in our consciousness? How much of it is embedded in an actual physical universe that is immutable and unchangeable?
Mm-hmm.
And personally, I kind of lean towards the belief that beyond the veil is kind of like deep into the recesses of your own consciousness. It's hard to explain. I mean, there's no real words that take you to this understanding. But yeah, there's some sort of collective consciousness, God consciousness behind the scenes that
Definitely.
influences us and plays with us sometimes in the form of a ghost or in the form of some sort of trickery, whether it be like, you have all these ancient legends of fairies and elves and gnomes which try to explain people experiencing things that are unexplainable and personifying it in a way that we can understand and at least explain and tell our spouse, tell our kids, pass on as in story form.
Think about that.
Please do.
Yeah, because it's interesting because, like I said, this has been my career path for 30 some years, and so I have learned a lot.
Yep.
And I've met a lot of skepticals. Skeptics.
I was one. I was one for a long time. Yeah.
And I welcome it. It never bothered me because I'm the kind of person that's like, yeah, let's talk about this. Like, yeah, you do you. If you don't believe in it, I'm okay with that.
I was atheist, science-based skeptic for probably a good 15 years of my young adulthood.
What made you come around? I mean, I'm kind of getting off the story, but what?
Personal experience. I mean, when something happens to you that doesn't add up to your belief and construction of reality, you have to stop. You have to at least give pause.
Yeah.
Whether or not you second guess what you thought you knew, it's person to person probably differs. But I had to take a step back and reevaluate based on evidence.
So, do you remember when you were about 7th grade, 8th grade? I can't remember, 6th grade maybe, when I started training feng shui, and you were angry at me. You said, "Mom, why are you wasting your money on this bullshit? Like, why don't you just give the money to me?" Do you remember that conversation?
Sounds like a smart kid.
And I was like, Dane, I'm not giving you my money. I'm going to school. I mean, you were really perturbed that I was, you were disturbed actually that I was, because you felt like I was being bamboozled out of my money into this like, like this stuff that says that you can bang drums and stuff.
Probably I thought it was like make believe back then,
Yeah, and you were really upset, and I was like, nope, I'm gonna do it. And so over the course of your life, I don't know if you remember this either, but it's stuck in my brain. I would do, you teach what you do, I find, as a career, for me anyway, and I do a lot of what I do as a career. So I did a lot of space clearings, did a lot of feng shui in my own house. And at least once a month, I would come through and do an energy clearing in our house. And like clockwork, I never said, and sometimes you were there for it and sometimes you weren't. But what was funny is I would do this space clearing and Dane would come back and suddenly start cleaning. Every time, clean your room. You would clean your room like clockwork. And sometimes you would do it to the point where you would like put all your little trophies up and you'd label them. And
I was a clean kid. Yeah, no, I remember.
But every
piece of garbage that I owned, and I owned a lot of garbage, had its own unique space on my shelf where it went.
And then what was interesting, so we'll fast forward here, because Dane was probably my biggest and first skeptic. And in a way, you were a gift to me because I had to fight, I had to work through that with you. And then I think when you were 18 years old, I was coming through and I was doing a space clearing and you stopped me like, "Mom." And I was like, uh-oh, here it comes. He's going to say some remark about my space clearing again.
I'm full of remarks.
And he's like, and I went, "What?" And he's like, this space clearing stuff? I'm like, uh-huh. He goes, it works. It's like he said it just like that. And I wanted so much to go like, yeah, it does. And blah, 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 blah. And what about this and how that? And I had to keep really cool. You
gotta
know,
play
'cause
cool.
teenagers,
Yeah,
you have to just, you can't. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
And inside, though, I was like jumping, screaming, yelling, like, oh my
Jubilacious.
God. It was
Yeah.
just like, you know, so that was, you know, that's interesting. And with space clearing, so this is, you know, I'm just going to get a little bloop, but, you know, one of the beautiful things about you know, it's like finding the science to prove it. And really, from a science point of view, like we talked about, everything is made of energy. So it makes sense that in our living spaces, that things are going to absorb what we're experiencing in our personality.
Well, and the difficulty is that science and reality is based on physically measurable evidence.
Yeah.
And there's no tape measure that you can put up to energy work and be like, aha, there's the proof.
It's true.
But if you calculate in, you know, and, you know, science disregards anecdotal experience, it doesn't count. But you have to count it because that is the human experience.
Yeah.
That is us understanding the world through our own lens. Mm-hmm. And when you do count that, and when you look at that, you know, the evidence of the stories I've heard from multiple people of experiences they've had, there's a lot more going on here than just what we physically see and measure and touch on a daily basis. It just, there's no way around it.
Yeah. And so when I talk about doing space clearings, that's what I'm doing is I'm coming in and rearranging the energy, you know, and it can't be destroyed or created, but it can be transformed. And that's what I like do. That. And so I'm constantly transforming energy to reflect what a person desires. So that's really what feng shui is. It's kind of a spiritual interior design where I go in and I listen to a person talk, what's working, what's not working, and then I transform the energy. And that's a whole topic for another conversation. And then I help them take their house and create something that they do want, like painting a color or bringing in more light or, you know, clearing clutter. You know, there's 100 things that you can do to make sure your outer environment is reflecting your inner environment and vice versa.
Well, you're really going into a space and imprinting an idea, imprinting an intention from yourself into the material world the best you can.
Yes.
Putting a stamp on it so that it will hopefully hold that intention, hold that energy to you know, help anchor the other person in that and help make some changes.
And our beliefs get acted out in our environments. So one quick story is there was a woman who couldn't save money. She's having a lot of money issues. And there was a certain area of your house. There's a bagua, which is a map for your house. I'm not going to go into that more right now, but you could look it up. It's BAGUA. And in her wealth corner of her bagua was a big stinky metal garbage can. And she couldn't save money. And what that reflected to me is that she didn't have a good relationship with money. She didn't really respect it. And then also, if you think about her taking that garbage out every day, the money was just flying out of her house. She couldn't save money. So I helped her figure out a way to start figuring out how she really felt about money. And it came down to that she hated it. She disliked it. She didn't really want anything to do with it. And there were some old woundings. And so I had her move her garbage to a closed container under her sink. And she put up a beautiful Tiffany lamp and cleaned it and painted the wall. And I heard back from her, and I think it was like 3 months, and she'd already saved like $5,000. So that's an example of, right, that reflection of our outer world and inner, you know.
Well, we all know that to some extent. There's the saying, you are who you hang around. because
Yeah.
your friends affect you. The people
Yeah.
you hang around imprint you as you on them.
Yeah.
And the physical world is just the same. Maybe a little bit. Maybe we glean a little less from the physical world. I don't know how you would compare it, but our environment makes us as well.
Absolutely. And that's, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so if we're living in something that's cluttered or
Squalor.
stinky or,
Yeah.
it's going to have an impact.
You're gonna have a stinky life.
Well, and that brings me to the paranormal piece, because with the space clearing, and I don't advertise this, but my niche is
Dun dun
I
dun.
yeah, boom boom boom, is I mean, we laugh about it, say I'm a ghost buster, but I don't really believe in busting ghosts. But I have done many haunted houses and spaces.
Yeah.
And some of them are famous that I can't talk about because I had to sign disclosures. And that is one of the things I think is funny that would be interesting to talk about, is why are people so afraid to admit that there could be something else out there, that there are ghosts.
I've thought about that a good amount. Yeah.
I don't know, even in this modern day, like I had one client who was like, I absolutely do not believe in ghosts, and they hired me as a last resort because they couldn't afford to move out of the house. And as we're talking, I mean, a glass flies across the room and smashes into the wall. And I'm like, what do you think just did that?
Probably a mouse.
Yeah. And I've had a lot of experiences of that where people are like, I don't want to know. I don't want to know. I don't believe in this. This isn't real. It's not happening.
Well, a lot of us have our ego tied to the world as we believe we perceive it. Like we
Right.
spent, 20, 30, 40 years building up an idea of what the world is and
Yeah.
crystallizing that in our mind. And people, they don't like change. They don't like changing ideology. They don't like admitting they're wrong. And when you start to pull out, so you build up a whole card castle of your belief system. And when you start to look at this card here on the bottom, you're like, oh, physical reality is not what you think. And you start trying to pull that out. It threatens the entire belief system. It threatens people on a fundamental level. And I've seen a lot of people like lash out, like almost with hostility at people. And you can see it. I've seen it probably strongest with talking to people that are dogmatically religious.
Right.
And then talking to them about like alternative versions of a god, or
right.
alternative versions of the beginning of the universe. And
Yeah.
some people are open-minded, but a few of them just can't even entertain another idea.
Yeah, they don't even want to open that door.
Yeah, because
What
any
does that mean about
evidence,
their life?
any evidence is going to collapse their entire understanding of who they are.
See, now that makes more sense to me, because that's a foundational piece. And I absolutely understand that, because I did go through a time period where I was losing my spiritual foundation.
Yeah, you
and
walked
it was
that. Yeah. Painful.
horribly painful. It was really hard. But with ghosts, it's kind of like, because most people in private will admit, oh yeah, I know things. Oh yeah. But there's still this stigma that you're crazy.
It
That
is
couldn't
weird.
be, it's just
Taboo almost.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But here's what's interesting, because I wanted to talk about this today because, there are certain times of the year where I feel like things really get stirred up, or, how should I say, like situations where I'll start having a lot more experience. Like I don't actively search out this kind of work anymore, or I never did really, but I'm not really, I don't really want to do that kind of work anymore. And there was a time period in my career where I felt like I could have been a psychic and a medium, and there were actually dead people coming to my house and I could see them, and I was like, nope, I want to work with the living. That's what's for me. But it's been coming up again, and it's interesting, because what I found is that, this is my experience after 30 years, is that whoever you were, like wherever you go, there you are, even in death. So if you were a bitter, curmudgeon, vicious, violent person. That's who you are after in death if you don't leave this planet. I mean, that's been my experience. So it's interesting. So that's been coming up. I just had a job recently. But have you had any experiences or
No, I've never had any experiences in life.
Ha.
What do you mean in regards
with
to?
with paranormal stuff?
Well, yeah, of course.
What's something that stands out for you that you're?
I mean, I don't know. There's a few instances. I remember all of them, obviously, because they're so strange. They're so out of the ordinary that they can't just blend into the background. Like, I don't think I'll ever forget these stories. But a good handful of them happened when I was a kid. When I was on my own, basically just, wake up in the middle of the night, nobody's around, you experience something. Was it a dream? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think it was. Seeing a couple orb presences in a bedroom back when I was living in a barn with my dad. And then there's experiences that you have which really make you kind of shatter the paradigm that you're living in, which are ones that happen when you're with other people. Because you can't really explain that away. Like, maybe you could say like mass hysteria or something along those lines.
Right.
But
I've heard that. Yeah.
even, I mean, you and multiple conscious adults all were there and watched and lived it. So you can't really escape that as being actually a part of reality. Yeah, I mean, there was that time in Malin where we saw, the strange lights in the sky. Maybe it was some crazy military tech, possibly. Definitely UFO, definitely unknown, definitely not following any flight patterns. But then I would say probably the main story that really proved to me that there's something beyond this,
Right.
physicality. Was my second time going to Alaska. I guess the third technically. I went up to Skagway with my ex-girlfriend Dusty, and we were living out in the woods. Cool little town, middle of nowhere. It's like 300 people population. In the summertime, that goes up to like 5,000 people with all the tourists coming through and all the seasonal work that pops up. So I'd built a little makeshift one-room cabin up on railroad property, probably 20 minutes outside of town, just up on the side of a mountain. And you'd hike up there 20 minutes out of town every night after work. And it was beautiful. Alaska is really beautiful. Complete savage, majestic nature. You're just out there, just untamed by mankind still. So you hike up there and you're just on this mountain. You can hear the town down below. You can hear the bars into the night. You can hear some people being loud. You're not completely isolated. You can hear and see the lights down there.
Yeah.
But there's nobody around you. And so we built this little cabin, and I built like a little table out of rocks and a little chair out of boulders, and had a roof and just a bunch of, it would keep the bears out. That really was my only mission.
Please.
Yeah, keep the rain off, keep the bears out. And so me and my ex-girlfriend Dusty were working there, and every day after work we'd make the trek back up the hill, into the woods, into the house, fire up the camp stove, make ramen or chili pretty much every night. And then we had a tent inside the cabin because the cabin wasn't mosquito proof. So we just get in the tent, be a little extra warmer, keep the mosquitoes off, and go to bed. And I guess the meat of this story happened just one random night. We finished work, we hike out of the town, up the hill, down the woods, to the little cabin we get in. One of the most important pieces of equipment having when you're camping, headlamp. Headlamp is extremely valuable.
Whew,
Sun's going down. We're getting our ramen made up. We put our headlamps on, and we're getting ready to eat. And Dusty, my ex-girlfriend, is talking to me, saying something about something. And I just watch her head bob back, and just this puzzled look crosses her face. And I ask her what's going on. Why?
What's that?
Yeah, but before I could finish answering her, I feel something just push me. Like on the head, right on the forehead, right on the headlamp, actually. Push me right on the headlamp. And it didn't feel malicious, and it didn't feel strong. The way I've always described it is it felt like a 6-year-old, like a little kid, just giving you a shove. And I my head bobbed back, and I looked at Dusty, and she still looked confused. And I remember I just turned off the camp stove, and I was like, let's go to bed.
Done.
Yep, we got in the tent, hid in the sleeping bags like little kids, and waited till morning. But it was something else. I don't know. I mean, I think like that might be what people used to call like fairies or elves. Like it felt just like a small playful sprite of some kind. Really, just felt like it was playing with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that was the end of it.
Yeah.
Didn't see anything else. Didn't hear anything else. I just fucking hid.
Yeah.
And that was that.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the reasons why, not because of that, but the thought that it's bringing up for me is there's a feeling of being out of control, right? Because you can't see.
Yeah.
And your mind has experienced something that you can't see, and you don't really have any teaching, training, or frame of reference, like what to do with that. And so I think people, can feel really out of control, and it's easier to be like, nope, that doesn't exist.
Well, you can't defend yourself against a predator that you can't see or don't understand. So it is on some fundamental level terrifying.
Yeah.
That you can be screwed with on in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's an interesting story. Yeah. I've had hundreds of stories, but I think the most interesting one for me, and like when I was a child, like one of the reasons I think I'm good at this is because I grew up in a haunted house and a haunted land, and I had many, many experiences. Now, as a child, I was terrified. Oh my gosh. I don't know if I slept first 18 years of my life. But going into this profession, I'm not terrified. I mean, maybe in the beginning, I would get terrified just because you get surprised. I don't like to be surprised by something you can't see.
No.
But I've always believed that behind every ghost, paranormal being that I've worked with, there's a wounding. So I was always able to look at this energy as something that's hurt, confused, broken. It's just like human beings. You go behind the biggest bullies, right? And there's always a wounding.
Yeah.
So the most interesting job that I did was for a huge college campus. I can't talk about the name, but it was interesting. It was huge. It was like over, 25,000 square feet. But people weren't willing to go to work anymore because all of these hauntings were happening, like noises, banging, coins would just apparate out of the air and start rolling down the hallway.
That's pretty cool.
And
free money.
Yeah, like that is so fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And they were kind of desperate and having issues with neighbors and fighting. And it was just like a lot of really potent negative. And so I always do an intake. I talk with people. I talk with the owners. I get as much history as I can. And this particular place had been owned by a very wealthy couple, and the husband had died, and then the wife took over the business. And it wasn't a college back in those days. But anyway, the main woman that was running this part of the college could barely talk to me about it. She's like, she would refuse to talk to me about it at the college because she was so terrified that
she was being watched.
It would hear her and start acting out more. The place where her office was hadn't had heat for like 2 years. They had people come in and try and fix it and try and fix it and try and fix it. They have not been able to get heat in there for years. Maybe more than 2 years. And it was over a garage. And just there were some other things, but I don't want to take too much longer. So that's the gist of the story. So I go in and do this clearing, and I make contact with the ghost, and it was the wife who was very upset about a lot of ways that things that had been happening. But long story short, as I was doing the clearing, and I do make noise, I'm using a drum or a sound at some point, and I could tell that she was getting agitated. And there were these old-fashioned like radiators on the floor, and I was in the office of the main woman who worked there. And suddenly the radiator is like clanging. I mean, like somebody was taking a wrench to it and like clang, clang, clang. And it was like moving and shaking. And I was like, wow, okay.
Hello there.
Like I said, I don't get scared, but that first noise, it scares you. You're like, oh, and then I'm like, okay. And what I found is ghosts listen. So just talk to them. If you have a ghost, talk to them. And I said, hey, look, I'm here in peace. I'm not here to hurt you. I go through my dissertation, my thing, and then it calmed down. And then I said, I really want to help heal this place and help you, And one of my key things, you've heard me say this, is like wherever love is, nothing else can exist. So I always bring love, not fear, not anger, not ego, not like, also like some of those ghost busting shows piss me off because like poke the bear, like let's try to make them do something. Not that crap. I bring love. I just bring love. And so I was doing that. And then suddenly I heard this, after that all calmed down, there was this like, it was so loud. It was like metal on metal. And it was going, it sounded like something was screwing in, like two metal pipes were screwing together. And it went on for like, it's hard to know time in these situations. And then it stopped. And then suddenly, and the heat came on. The room started to warm up. And I was like, I could tell she was happy. She was like, finally, somebody who's listening to her. And she ended up moving on. And after that, they didn't have any other issues with it. There's so much detail this story I'm leaving out, but those are the really interesting parts. And actually, this spirit, I would have loved to have sat down and had a cocktail with her because she was badass.
Sassy lady.
Sassy lady, man. She was like, whew, you're not going to mess with my place. Anyway, but
did you charge them extra for repairing the heater?
I didn't. Their minds were completely blown.
Yeah.
Because like I said, they could not get the heat. They've tried everything. And for me, like I'm also a skeptic in my work. I don't just go like, "Oh, it's a ghost." I always go through a protocol. I have a scientific mind as well. And so when I heard that, I went to the garage, right? Because I thought, well, maybe somebody showed up and they're in the garage. It used to be a carriage, a barn carriage. But I went down there and there was no one there, and I knew there wouldn't be because the door was locked and nobody had the key but me. But just so you know, I do, I do go through a process. I'm not like everything's a haunted thing, but it's fascinating to me.
It's interesting you brought up that, it stems from a place of pain, a place of hurting, you said.
Yeah.
And, that is basically just another word for trauma.
Yes.
And trauma, it appears, just sticks energy because, many people will stick in their own patterns in life. If you're traumatized as a child or at some point as an adult, you just kind of halt all progress and shell up and just stay there. So it seems like, as a human, as a ghost, as just any sort of conscious energy vortex, trauma is a way just to hit the pause button.
Well, yeah. And that's why, when I've talked to people who are suicidal, I'm like, I work with the dead and I'm telling you, it's not going to take everything away. It might take an immediately release of this one emotional thing that you're feeling. But what I've learned from working closely with that other world is that it might leave temporarily, but whatever was there comes back. It's kind of like when you travel. Like I have good friends that have moved to different countries at different times, and I have as well, thinking like, oh, I'm going to go there and it's going to be better. Yeah, and in some ways it is, right? But then in other ways, it's still all the same stuff. I mean, I had that on the El Camino. I was like, oh, I'm going to walk the El Camino and it's going to be great and this and that. And, blah. And I was some days miserable. And I was like, wow, I'm living my dream and I'm still unhappy. This is something inside of me I got to fix. And I really believe that in death, that you are that. So face it. Whatever it is, try to meet it here. And
it's a good spot.
That's a good spot. I mean, I could talk about this for hours.
I know you could.
But I want to give you over it, but let's see the time because we might need to. It's 7:44. We're going to check the.
Going to check.
Intermission. Uh-oh.
I think it ran 29 minutes, so we probably lost like the last 4 or 5 minutes of that. We have it on there.
We got to get that fixed, though. That's not good. So there'll be 15 minutes of that then.
Probably less. I think about.
We're back. We're trying
in the
to,
hot seat.
like I said, this is new. We're trying to work out some technical difficulties.
True.
One of them being the camera that shuts off after 30 minutes or so.
Yep. Just had to make sure it was still recording. Turned out it wasn't. So now we're back in action.
Okay. So thank you. What's on your question? What do you want to talk about today?
Speaking of beyond the veil.
Yeah.
The energy. It's another way to look at that is kind of like the realm of magic. The realm of the unknown and how to turn that into something.
Something, yeah.
Which is another word for manifestation, creation. I think as there definitely, I can't say definitely, but there is something, in my opinion, beyond physical reality. And I think if you figure out how to kind of step into it and harness it and kind of focus that energy through your own lens of intention, you can discover, you can build, you can imagine. Imagining, I think, is a portal into this other realm, and you can create. You can actually influence and create your own imagination into this world, into this existence. And so, I think it's important to at least be open to and spend some time even exploring this other realm, even if it's just through what some people call meditation or kind of a stepping back into your own imagination and just exploring what's on the inside of your own mind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I will say, I've asked a lot of people, what's important to you?
Yeah.
And what do you want to do in your life?
Yeah.
And these questions, they require that you step into yourself and actually like feel and observe who you are and what's important to you. And so yeah, how did imagination play a role in creating your life and creating a career in what is effectively energy work and ghost busting, quote unquote?
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because I'm not a college graduate. I took 3 years of college. I was going to become a nurse. And then I got towards the end of that and I was like, wrong. Special people, kudos to our nurses out there. And then I, was raising a family and I did the barista coffee and I was a dental assistant and office manager, all these things. But looking for that purpose, finding the magic, how I created my feng shui job was actually through that. Because I didn't know what I wanted for my purpose. So I started by using my creative manifestation to create the parameters of what that thing would be. I wanted to be self-employed. I wanted there to be no limit to the amount of money I could make. I wanted to be able to make my own hours. I wanted it to be something that was spiritual. I wanted it to be something where I could help people. I mean, I could go back and find the list, you know, it was long, but it was just, you know, the description. And it was shortly after that that feng shui came into my life with a book. And I couldn't put it down. In fact, I started doing the principles.
I remember you'd be making like all sorts of collages back when I was a kid.
And then I started doing collages.
Creating visually what it was that you were trying to aspire towards.
But it was through that creative act of that making that list that I then, like, the book came in, and then a class came in, and then my friend Katie Lyons had a feng shui school I went to, and Denise Lynn, and these pieces, and it was slowly, I mean, it felt very magical.
Yeah.
And for me, it was just a hobby, but I was so good at it. And people said, you know, and of course, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but when you are learning a new craft or something, you like want to try it on your friends, right? Oh, here, let me make this for you. Or here, let me do a feng shui thing for you. And people are like, oh, you're really good at this. And I didn't want to do it for a career, because usually I'm a fickle person, and what I do for a career I end up hating.
Yeah, me too.
I wanted to keep it for a hobby.
Yeah.
But it just kept knocking on my door, and more clients, and then I turned it into a business. And so I feel like that creative manifestation intention of, like, I want a job that kind of looks like this, but I don't know what it is. It totally came true.
There is something magic about that. It's like, and each time you focus on it and think about it and imagine it again, you can see a little bit more detail.
Yeah.
You can see a little bit, the door's a little wider open.
Yeah.
A little more light there. Yeah.
Can I say, I think that's my biggest challenge in manifesting, is the laser focus, crystal clarity on, like, what. Because once I got those parameters, it was easy. Once I did the vision board for the house that I now live in, it's also one of those magical manifesting stories. I mean, I was laser beam, but there's a lot of time where I am unclear. Right? Oh, I want this. So I want that. And I'll spend a couple of days.
A muddy experience. It's tough to see.
So that's what I want to work on, is how can I keep bringing that one focus and stay on that until it manifests, and then go on to the next, because I can get distracted easily. Oh, now I want this. Oh, now I need to work on my health. Oh, now I want this.
Well, I wish I had an answer to that.
I know,
because I'd be practicing it.
Yeah.
I mean,
so what's for you? You know,
I think it's, you know, like just a muscle. You just have to keep practicing.
Yeah.
You know, keep picking it up and hold that focus for as long as you can, and you're gone. You're distracted.
Yeah.
And then you remember, you're like, oh wait, no, there's this thing I'm doing.
Right.
You pick it up again and you run with it. And I guess that's literally what they call practice, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get out on the track and you run for as long as you can, and then you're done.
You
put it down. But I mean, you know, like with exercise also, the rest is a key point. It's a key point in developing a skill. You have to sit back, rest, reflect, and understand what went right, what went wrong. How am I going to do it better next time? It's I mean, it's tough to understand. It's magic.
It is.
It's unknowable, but I believe in it, and I'm running with it myself right now. This little ditty started as just an idea, running boxes all day, every day. And
well, tell people what that is, because they may not know what that is.
This is a little tool. It's called a belt shelf. It sits on your belt, and it just gives you just enough of a lift that you can drop 150 pounds on that. 40-pound box, 100-pound box, and it takes all the weight of the box and transfers it onto your belt, which basically takes all the weight off your arms, off your shoulders, off your back,
off your upper back.
And allows you just to carry it on your hips.
Yeah.
So it allows for longer carrying, easier carrying,
safer, because you can
carrying.
Have one hand.
Yeah, I mean, it was built.
It actually saves you money, because what you would spend in doctor bills and stuff, you don't have that back trauma. I've heard that.
I love a good saleswoman. She's doing a good
No,
job.
it's true.
But it's
and time saves you time.
I believe in it wholeheartedly.
Yeah.
But my point with it is, it started as just a problem that started to nag me. It's like carrying boxes. Screw this. This sucks.
Yeah, it's
and
hard.
So,
It hurts.
you're like trying to like balance it all day while you're opening
Yes.
business doors. And, so you develop an idea. You're like, maybe I could like wedge it on my hip and make it easier. And I thought about it and thought about it again and again and again. And over all these iterations, this idea became more and more crystal.
Yes.
And I was able to basically, people are like, oh, you invented it. Kind of, I guess. But I feel like what I really did was like just focus on like this light and like plucked the idea out of the ether. Like it was like a gift from the universe almost, more than like I wasn't sitting there like running equations and calculations and like it wasn't even really work. It was more of an artistic expression more than like an endeavor of engineering, I would say. But it happened exactly like that. And now I'm taking, the invention came from somewhere out here, and now it's
it's real.
a physical tool that I can hold and touch and use and can help me and save me time and work, and is helping 30 drivers in the field today carrying boxes. So it's like real tangible change in this world has started out of imagination, out of whatever exists beyond the veil, whatever is beyond this. Because that didn't come from the physical realm, that came from somewhere else.
Yes. And if we look at history, there's a million of those stories.
Yeah.
Right?
Every piece of tech.
Da Vinci,
Yeah.
like where these things were plucked. Even music, like watching documentaries about music, like what the hell? I mean, they just open up and like, and a little word here and there, and you can see they're just pulling it in.
Creation, artistic expression. Yeah.
Oh, it's just,
it's magic.
It's exciting.
It's beautiful.
It's
that spark of divinity expressed like in an
divine
instant.
Intelligence.
Yeah.
Well, and the important thing though is to remember that when things are heavy and down, because I mean, there's times of life where, for me, I don't feel creative and I feel depressed or I feel
in the
mud. Yeah, I'm stuck in the mud. It's murky. It's muddy, and you're like, ugh. Right? But that's when it's like, I feel like the true work of the creative magic is in those moments to find that light and pull it in.
One of the coolest things about being a human is that I truly believe that
Yeah.
we are all plugged into that
Yes.
source light, that divinity, whatever it
Yes.
is, whatever is beyond where we are right now. We're all connected to that on some umbilical cord level. And if you practice looking within, if you practice asking yourself questions and understanding who you are and what your creative ability is, you're going to change the world.
Yeah, you will.
And you're going to build whatever it is that your heart desires.
Yeah.
And it's fucking cool.
It is. And one of the exercises I do almost daily, I mean, definitely once a month, is I'm constantly writing and rewriting, what my ideal life is. Like, what do I want to create? And I would say when I was younger, it was like a lot of things, but now it's really more about peace and, I still want to be creative, like things like this podcast was one of the things, but part of that creative magic is you have to keep plugging into it, because like everything, and this goes back to the energy that we were talking about, feng shui and everything's changing. The molecules are changing, and every second our body's changing. Everything's changing. So an important part of this process is to keep plugging in every day what's changed, and then let go of the stuff that's not working.
Yeah.
I mean, and I think that goes back to also is like being engaged in conversation with people who uplift and inspire and, can get you out of your stuck habits and comfort zones.
She's an inspiring woman.
Well,
even when you're a 13-year-old boy that thinks what she's doing is a crock of crap.
Oh my God, I love that story.
She brought me all the way around, taught me there's a lot more going on here, slowly but surely.
Well, I'm so happy. Both my kids believe in feng shui and use it and love it.
Well, I wouldn't say believe.
Pretend. Well, you
Yeah.
use it.
Yeah,
Okay.
Maybe
not believe.
It's real. It's real.
Yeah. I appreciate that. But that's the other thing that I'm finding, like, moving forward and these creative endeavors and stuff, is it's important to connect to people as well.
That is important.
Yeah.
Yep. It's been fun connecting with all of you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hope that you've gleaned some stuff today. Check out Chinese New Year, Wood Snake.
Wood Snake.
It's coming.
Go Wood
I can
Snakes.
feel it.
I feel like it's like some
in.
like old school 80s gang name, Wood Snakes.
Maybe it'll be a song, or I don't know.
Maybe, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah.
I got a really good feeling this is going to be a nice year.
Yeah.
It's already shaping up pretty damn good, and we got a long ways to go. So.
Yep. And we just keep holding the hope and the love and the creative magic, and
the conversation.
Keep doing your best.
Cool. Well, that's pretty good.
Yep. I think that was a good one.
Oh, I think so too.
Really?
Once again, it's a little camera problems, but you know.
We gotta get that worked out, but whatever.
Sure, it's just a setting